Well, he's not dead after all. It's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Sprue review video. Yes, we are back, and this time we are heading to 40k, and specifically, we are returning to Armageddon. Not the return to Armageddon just yet, who knows when that's going to be, but this time, we're returning to Armageddon alongside old Bale himself. Yes, Games Workshop have been very, very kind and have sent me a huge amount of Warhammer 40,000 new miniatures to build up, paint and sprue review with all of you, and well, that's exactly what we are doing today, the sprue review part of it. The painting has been real slow this week because I wasn't here last weekend. I was at a Warhammer 40,000 tournament, which is somewhat auspicious for this week. Yes, I'm a big fan of Guard now. I think I'm going to change my entire identity. We have got an absolute ton of stuff to get through today, but before we jump in and do just that, I do have to ask you, of course, if you could please leave a like on the video, comment below, tell me, are you excited to return to Armageddon for the 4th or 5th time or whatever it is now? And if you're not already, please do hit that subscribe button. It's a free way to support the channel. I would really, really appreciate it if you could do so. So bearing all of that in mind, we haven't actually got much preamble today because there's so much content here to get through. So we're going to jump in and we are going to return of Yarrick to Armageddon and 40k right now. Alrighty, here we go. It is time. We're going to kick off with Commissar Yarrick. We've got a lot to do, but he is the one I'm probably the most excited for, to be honest. Old man Yarrick returning, an absolute classic model. An absolute classic character. Much beloved by many of us out here in the Warhammer community. So, this is him in his new plastic form. Well, this version of plastic form. Has he had a plastic one before? I can't remember. I do have a very, very old metal one. I think it's the maybe either the second or the first version of him. I've got it somewhere. But here he is. Commissar Yarrick. Very excited. Okay, let's get this open. Here we go. What do you get in the box? Well, in the box you should get at least one sprue. Yep, there it is. One base and one instruction manual. Nothing else, so that's okay. Farewell box. So, Commissar Yarrick, here he is. What do we have? Do we have any optional assemblies? I doubt that we have any optional assemblies. No. But what we do have is 20 components. And everything is in numerical order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's fantastic. That's what we like to see. Nice and simple and easy instructions to follow. You can't ask for anything better than that. Love to see it. Right. Instructions are good. Oh, what size base was he on? Completely missed that. It looks like a 32. It is indeed a 32mm round base. Alright, here's the sprue itself. This is the real exciting thing that everybody's looking forward to. So, first things first, this is a sheathed sword. So it doesn't matter if it has a connection point on a cutting edge of a blade, because there is no cutting edge of a blade because it's in the sheath. So that's all good. However, we do actually have the large power claw, of course, being Commissar Yarrick. And he does not quite have a connection point on the cutting edge of that blade there. It is just on the flat kind of like sort of hilt of the claw, as it were. And then on this one, we're also on the top side of the claw too. And this one also escapes it, which is fantastic. 10 out of 10. Would build again. As for Yarrick's coat, this is really cool. So we're connected once here at the sort of gorget, and that's one area we're going to have to be careful because there is a little bit of a sort of trim separation between the top of the aquila and the top of the chest plate. You have to be a little bit careful there. But then we're once here on the underside of the jacket, and then once here on the inside of the jacket, and then once here on the kind of commissarial sash, which does mean that could potentially be a little spindly, but it feels pretty solid to me, and just giving it a little bit of a push like that. So the only thing to really kind of be slightly afraid of is going to be whether or not this connects into that nice and smoothly. Now, unlike some cloaks that we have had in the past, there's actually some cut-out grooves here, 1, 2, and 3. So that helps us guide the cloak together, which should mean, theoretically, as long as we use enough glue going along this seam, concentrating here, here, and here, that there shouldn't be any gap between the front and the back of the coat. Of course, that remains to be seen once we actually start putting it together, but that's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. A lot of the time, you don't have these sort of guiding grooves, and you just have to sort of hope that you eyeball it correctly. Then invariably, once you put the primer on, you have not eyeballed it correctly, or at least that's my lived experience of such things. So that's pretty cool. This coat, though, however, unlike the front of the coat, the back of the coat does have a connection point here on the side of the coat. So we're going to have to be really careful with how much we take off there when we're smoothing it down after we've clipped it, because again, we don't want to have a little sort of divot halfway up the side of the greatcoat. The storm bolter. Is it a storm bolter? Yes, it is a storm bolter. Blimey. Storm bolter has a connection point once here on the leather of the sort of the holster strap, or the carry strap, and we have one here on the top here, one here on the top there as well. There should be a little thing that goes on the top of it. Yes, there it is, number 10, which is pretty cool, because it means that quite often with sort of storm bolters, you'll have a connection point maybe on the top of the sort of sight, or sort of maybe on the top of the little kind of square that sits at the back of a storm bolter quite often. Not so in this case. In this case, what we have is connection points on the top of the bolter, here and here, with a cap that goes on top of it, which is quite a nice way of doing it, to be honest. I like that a lot. So that's cool. We have 2 legs, 1 and 2. They're connected in places where you will never see if you accidentally do a little bit of damage with your knife or mold line remover, which is really cool. It's good stuff. We like it. As for the rest of it, well, his face is connected once on his neck and twice on the kind of guide peg where it will go into the chest. So that's great. We love to see that. Lovely, lovely stuff. Okay. I don't really know what else there is to sort of point out here, other than, you know, some of these are kind of nice square pieces. For example, the holster over here. The actual sort of shroud of the Stormbolt is pretty good. And we have the shroud of the Power Claw as well, which is also in really good nick. Just a couple of connection points around the outside on a nice, smooth, flat surface. And that's always what we like to see. So, generally, this is a very good sprue. Now, is it going to be a very good character to build? 18 components? Ooh, I don't know. Maybe 30 minutes? Something like that? But we'll have to see. Maybe he'll be really quick, because we don't even really need to look at the instructions, because they're in numerical order. Boy, he's very nice. Commissar Yarrick. Love to see it. Wow, what a lovely model. It's nice to have him back. Right, now that he's done, it's time to move on to someone completely brand new, which is going to be Inquisitor Kroyle. This is another one of the ones I really, really like. Never seen this before. It's just wacky and crazy. Now, we do have an alternate build here, which is interesting. So I think it's basically a case of different helmet for the Inquisitor, and whether or not we want gas mask on or mouth open for the mount. But let's have a look together, shall we? That's at least what the pictures show us on the back. So I'm reckoning 2 sprues. Yep. And a round base. Okay. I'd have thought that would have been on a an oval base. Okay. Well, here we go. So wow, look at that. There's a lovely large tactical rock right there. That's cool. Looks to be like it's all in pretty much one piece. Oh no, we've got a bit there as well. I guess that'll be coming in under there, which is fine. Makes sense. I only got a little bit over there as well. Okay, so not entirely in one piece. 1, 2, and 3. Maybe this one's in order as well. Okay, and there's another sprue just there. All right, so That looks like a 60mm round base to me. So let's have a look, shall we? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 components there. And 8, 9. Well, okay, let's count this properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Component 7 is missing. It's over there. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, or 17. Yep, okay. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. For some reason the legs are in 2 pieces. That's weird. 28 components, 29 components, 30 components, 31 components, 33, 32, 34, or 35 and 36. And then we glue it all together and he's done. Okay, so 36 total components, but if we use bare head, we're down to 35 components, and we're only going to be using one of the head assemblies. So that's, what was that? Maths already forgotten. Down to 35, yes, if we just use one head. So 1, 2, and then 5 components. So yes, we're going to be using sort of maybe roughly around about 31, possibly 32 components to build the whole thing. Interesting. Okay, it's a lot of components to put together one guy, but that was it in terms of the optional assemblies. Yep, just the head options on both the mount and on Inquisitor Kroyle himself, which is cool. That's fine. That's all right. So here is sprue number 1 with the body of the mount, basically. So one of the things we're going to be looking out for here on this sprue is, as ever on something like this, it's not a fully armoured mount like a bike, for example, or a jet bike or something like that. This is indeed an organic mount, like a horse. So the thing to always watch out for with these sorts of things is when you have lots of connection points on like the smooth flesh. And in the instance of this one, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 components all on the smooth flesh. Not a single one is on a strap or on the saddle, which is a bit rubbish. Inquisitor Kroyle's other half of the mount, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connection points here. Got really thick ones here on the legs, 1 and 2, and 1 here on the tail. But then these 2 up here are on the seam of the reins here, and this one's on the seam of the saddle as well. So these 2 absolutely fine because they'll be nice and flat and easy. These ones are on the organic parts, where we want to be very careful that we don't accidentally smooth it off, because we want to keep some of that sort of organic texture, the roundedness of nature, rather than just kind of flatten it off. So that's just, you know, I mean, it happens quite often. It's just a lot nicer to have a connection point on the underside of the foot and then on the saddle, for example. Generally, there's usually at least one on some sort of muscle. The only slight disappointing thing here is that it is on the front of all of the legs. It's not really on the back of the leg. So if you're looking at it front ways on and you've dinged it with your knife or mold line remover, it's going to be very, very noticeable. We also have another part of a leg, well, that looks like a part of a leg here. Is this a 6-legged monster? I can't remember. Yes, it is a 6-legged monster. So this one also has a connection point on the front of the leg. This one here is one of his legs. We have these sort of look like sort of mandible things for the mount as well, where we're connected here, always on the front of things. Again, so this is what I mean, is the outward-facing details where it's really obvious if you accidentally ding it or take too much off. You just need to move with the curvatures of the pieces. You're probably going to want to come across it like this. If I'm holding the sprue like this, you want to go sort of left to right rather than up and down, because that way you can kind of sort of use more of that curvature of the piece in order to smooth it down. But that's just something to bear in mind. We do have the rein over here, which is kind of feels a little bit flimsy just there, and that bit's not meant to be there, so that needs to come off. That's a bit of the sprue, just sort of floating sprue there to help it, I guess, during the manufacturing process. Then we have some of the heads as well. We have all of the head options here, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So we're connected in the helmet here and here, which is, again, fine. They are right up against the seam by the looks of things. So again, we're going to want to kind of hold the pieces together to make sure that we're not kind of taking too much off and end up with a divot, so it doesn't look like that sort of thing. when you put the two components together. So there we go. That's both the heads. So neither of them are in single pieces, as we know from looking at the instructions. And they also seem to be like right down the middle as well. Yeah, right down the middle. So rather than kind of have an overlap, there's a possibility of having a gap down the middle of the head of the mount. But okay, as a mount sprue, it's not the best I've ever seen. It's probably trending more towards one of the most tricky to build. Let's have a look at the other one. So here is the, well, I mean, the tactical rock, as we know. And also we have some of Inquisitor Kroyle's heads. Well, we have both of Inquisitor Kroyle's heads. So once here and once there. They're both connected on the underside of the neck, which is absolutely perfect. Love to see that. And then we have the sort of the feather in his cap, which goes up on the helmet, which is really cool. It's only got the one connection point, which is in the feathers, but I don't know where else they would be able to put it. So absolutely fine. Rather than the other option is that it's fully sculpted in, but then I suspect if it's fully sculpted to the helmet, there would be a lot more connection points there. So that's probably the best of all situations right there. We have another one of the legs for the mount, and this actually is the only good leg we've seen so far, because we're connected once on the underside of the foot and once up here in the seam where it's going to be going into the body where you'll never see it. So that's the only good leg out of 6. So 5 bad legs, 1 good one. It's not a great ratio. We have the underside, the sort of undercarriage of the mount as well as over here. So there's going to be a little bit of sort of chopping and changing between the two sprues, which is, you know, fine if you're gonna, as long as it's not too much. Then it's kind of a lot quicker to build. It's just when you have like component 1's here, and then component 2's over there, and then component 3's back here, and then 4. And like if you're alternating between the two sprues, it becomes a little bit of a nightmare to put the thing together, because you're having to spend a lot of time doing navigation. There's a little bit that's going to go on here, but not too much by the looks of things, which is absolutely fine. The sniper rifle here, to my eye, looks a little bit bent, and I think it might be to do with the sprue having a bit of a wonk, as you can see there. It looks a little bent, so I might have to apply a little pressure. Your mileage may vary. It might be that once this clips out, that there's actually just some tension on it here, which is why it looks a little bit bent, but that's just one thing to sort of bear in mind. We do have 3 connection points on that weapon, and 1 on this long, slender barrel as well. Maybe we could have dealt with not having that one there, which maybe would help it not look quite so. I'm not sure if I'm just imagining that. It does look like it's sort of drooping a little bit at the end. I don't know. What do you guys think? You have to let me know. And also let me know if you have a similar maybe thing with your sprues when you get them. We have another part of the reins here. Again, this is even spindlier. There is only 1 connection point on it though, so we shouldn't have to deal with sort of the tension of it snapping, unless that's just simply parted from where it's supposed to be. It does kind of look like it actually was connected at some point, but some pressure in the box maybe is something that separated that. So watch out for that. If that is the case, then it might be that yours could be snapped maybe in the box in transit. It should still be there, hopefully, but yeah, it does look like it actually was connected, because sometimes you'll see like one of those sorts of things, but it won't have like the little point on it, so it'll just kind of look like that. It's just there to help it in the manufacturing, but yeah, that looks like that was actually connected like that. So hopefully I'm not missing a tiny piece, but there we go. Okay, it's not a great sprue for Inquisitor Kroyle. Fantastic model, and it's going to be a lot of components, which means it's going to take a lot of time. In terms of mold lines, we look to be in pretty good shape, actually, to be fair. So there shouldn't be too much cleanup in that regard, but we're going to have to be really careful around the mount and make sure that we get those nice and smooth and move with the curvature of these pieces. So we'll see how long it takes to build it then, and we'll do that starting now. Inquisitor Kroyle is all built, looking great. So, keeping on theme with the sort of Imperium thing, what we're going to do next is we're going to work on Intranzia Fraye, Dogmata Superior. There we go. So, here we have it. We do have what seems to be some options, which is nice. We got an optional helmet by the looks of things, and I can't tell whether the candles are the thing that they're pointing out there as being optional, or indeed that thing. Maybe that's a decal, not entirely sure. Right, let's go and have a look, shall we? Inside the box. So how many sprues? 2 sprues. Very technically 3 sprues. Another round base. Looks like a 60. And an instruction manual, as you'd expect. So, here we go. Oh, blimey. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, choice of head, so 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. Okay, 53 components, almost, I think, maybe if we counted that properly. So there's no optional guns or anything, it just seems to be that the optional assembly here is indeed the head. So, interesting to call that out on the back of the box, but there we go. So, looks intense with 53 components, but it might not be as bad as all that. The Kroyle wasn't too bad after all. So let's have a look at these sprues. They are little sprues, but there's a lot of action packed in here, as we know, there's over 50 components. So, sprue number 1, here it is. Here we have gun. I really love the sort of heavy bolter and flamer combination. It's the Infernus heavy bolter that the Deathwatch, for example, have had for a long time. Because we're in a sort of a vehicle type situation, everything should be pretty much on a flat on a 2D plane, so it should be easy in terms of cleanup, because all of the connection points should be in this kind of orientation for all of our components, and that makes things quite easy to do the cleanup in. The only thing we're going to really be on the lookout for is dodgy connection points. So here on this helmet head, for example, that's absolutely fine, no problem there whatsoever. And for those of you familiar with building sisters, we always seem to have connection points here on the vent system on the chest piece, which is just strange. But they still do it to this day. But we have a third one here at the belt, which isn't too bad, but this one is just that's always that case of if you leave any behind, it's really obvious, and if you take too much, it's really obvious. So just be careful around there. Same here on component 34, that's the back of the body as well. And then once here on the underside of the bottom, where she's going to sit, so that's not too bad. Very nice and easy to deal with. The bare head option over here has a connection point there in the hair for some reason, and on the underside of the neck, so that's a big no-no. So actually the helmet here is probably the better and easier option to build and paint, which is, well, makes a nice change, doesn't it? We have the body of the cherub over here, which is connected under the armpit in quite a sort of concaved area, so that's going to be a little bit tricky to get at, so just be careful around there. Again, don't accidentally cut any of the actual bit of the model off when you're trying to get it off the sprue. Probably cut back here a little bit if you can, and then kind of use your knife to lever it off. Is probably what the best way to do that is. There's some paper connected around the outside. The legs of Intranzia Fraye were connected right on the top of the legs where she's sat down, so in a really obvious place if you take too much off. So just again move with the curvature of the piece, going like this way rather than going that way across the legs. So there you have it. The backpack is connected 3 times, but it's all on the kind of flat vents, so it's not too bad. That should be pretty easy to deal with. And this pipe here seems like a strange thing to definitely call out, but we are connected on the sort of raised areas of the segments of the pipe, so that's actually a lot easier. Sometimes it can be right in between the 2 big segments, so yeah, it's really annoying when that happens. Other things to be on the lookout for here, particularly on this component here, is just not accidentally, is probably, let me start that again, is when you're going to be cleaning it off, is to come away from the spikes rather than towards them, because you don't want to accidentally take the spikes off with your knife or mold line remover. Okay, that's sprue number 1. It's looking okay. Here's sprue number 2. That's one technically 2 and 3, but this is where the vast majority of the vehicle itself is, and I'm not seeing anything here really that's leaping out at me as being too difficult to deal with. We don't have connection points, for example, in the flames of this brazier here, which is good. The only thing I think to possibly be aware of here is going to be this piece here, which is just a bit of gate that just needs to come out. That's not meant to be there, so do just clip it out. It's absolutely fine to get rid of that, because, well, like I said, it's not meant to be there, and you'll have a terrible time trying to build the rest of the model if you leave it in, I'm sure. Same for this piece down here as well. So there you go, vehicle sprue part. It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's always in this orientation you want to start just cleaning things up. In terms of mold lines, we seem to be in pretty good condition here as well. There's not too much or too thick ones going on. They're not visible from outer space, which makes it quite nice and easy to deal with. So the thing to do is to go ahead and deal with it. Do like vehicle sprues. They're always so easy to look at. But there you go. 2D plane. Job's a good one. Let's see how long it takes to build. I reckon 57 minutes, but that's just a guess. So there we have it, Intranzia Fraye, all built. My God, it's imposing. Wow. Okay, well, it's time for another imposing model. Wazdakka Gutsmek. Oh boy, this one looks enormous. So here we go. On the back, we have an option. You are able to leave the fire off if that's something you wish to do. I do think it sort of maybe reduces the silhouette just a little bit. So there's a lot of kind of negative space there. And I'm not sure about this wheel. I think maybe this wheel might actually be attached to the rock. At least it kind of looks like it could well be. So otherwise that's going to be a really difficult glue job. So in many ways this kind of feels like it has to be there. But you can leave it off, is what they're saying. Anyway, let's have a look inside at the box. So this is the contents. And we have ourselves an oval base, as you would expect. 2 sprues, 1 and 2, loads of components. We're looking at another 50 bomb by the looks of things. So there we go. And our instruction manual, here it is. So let's have a look inside, shall we? See if there's any other optional extras contained within. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 components, all in order at the very beginning. We are then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, not quite in order, but near enough. 21, 22, 23 for our little grot on the back, who's fantastic. And oh, we're still assembling. So what was that? That was 23 components, yes. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Yeah, not seeing the rear wheel. So maybe we are correct. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Yep, the wheel is attached to a rock. 46 total components. And then, boom, there it is, the only optional detail. The optional detail is indeed either just the ring on the back or the smoke and fire blasting out the back. So that makes sense. We have a 120mm oval base as well. So it is a vehicle sprue, which means it should be pretty quick to review. Here it is. So first of the sprues. Again, it'll be just like with Intranzia Fraye and every other vehicle that we look at. You just want to orient your components like this and go through cleaning them up in that orientation. Checking out on the mold lines just for the moment, and we look to be in really good shape here as well. Although we've got some going on there on that sort of canister just under there. Good, actually. Do you know what? These are a little bit bigger A little bit thicker than the other miniatures that we've had so far in this video. So that's, yeah. I mean, they're not bad. They're not amazing either. I've just knocked something off by twisting it. Yep, there it goes. There was a bit of tension there on component number 3, I think. So there we go. Anyway, the things we're going to be looking for are going to be stuff like the cutting edge connections, as always, but also if there's any connection points in stuff like, you know, their Gutsmek's actual flesh. So for example, just here on this arm, we've got a connection point there on the tricep. So we want that to be nice and smooth. This one, we don't have a connection point on the smooth arm though, so that's good. But here on the back, we do 1 and 2. But they are in the seams where the things are going to be covering those things up if you do accidentally take a little bit off. So that's pretty good. The torso here, we are connected on the skin as well, just on the side there, and up here on the back of the neck. But in here on that little bit of the jacket as well. That's probably the easiest part to deal with. But otherwise here, we're just going to want to move with the curvature of those pieces. For the boss pole, we do have a connection point on the the horn. That's what the word I'm looking for. Just there, so on the smooth part of the horn. Again, that would have been nice to have avoided. And then we have one here right on the top of the Space Marine helmet as well, which is a big no-no in a Space Marine kit, so it's a big no-no here as well. The little grot, though, we have a connection point on his bum, and one here on the top of the grenade, so that's pretty good looking stuff. Other things to be just aware of is we do have the sort of engine, sort of energy house thing, sort of thing that usually goes on the back of like the big mech, where we do have the connection point right there on that sort of power node just there, so we don't love to see that. We have another part of like one of the trophies and things where we have connection point in the segments of the horn here and here as well, both worth bearing in mind. You want to move away from the recess, so for example in this instance you want to smooth it in this direction, and same for this one, you want to go in that direction there rather than go this way, because otherwise you'll end up smoothing off the segment of the horn. So that's sprue number 1. In fact, actually just very quickly, we do have a bit of the fire and smoke here, where we do have 1, 2 and 3 connection points in the smoke, and not in the kind of seams of the smoke. This one is on an outward facing part of the billowing part of the smoke, so that one is another one where we just want to move with the curvature of the piece. The other sprue over here is where we've got some slightly bigger bits. So this one is quite a densely packed sprue, but this one is less so because we have that large, lovely tactical rock and various other things as well. But we do also have the flames and stuff that are coming out the back of the jet. Here we have connection point on a sharp part, but it's not a blade, so I guess we'll wear it for now. One here, one there as well, one here, one here, one here in all of the sort of blooming smooth parts of the smoke as well. We've got slightly bigger mold lines on this sprue as well versus the other one. Again, not the worst I've ever seen, not the best. They do seem to come off quite easily though, so that's a small blessing, I suppose. So another example of that on that sort of that smoke as well. Connection point, connection point, connection point, connection point, all in the smoke. It would have been nice to have most of them be here on this sort of support ring here, or indeed in areas where we're going to be sort of gluing it to the other bits. The main body of the bike though, this is vehicle town central, where we are connected just around the outside of the pieces, which makes it nice and easy to clear up. His head though, we do have one connection point there right on the top of his bald smooth head. That's a big no-no. We don't like to see that, just because it's a very visible area for you to maybe accidentally take too much or smooth off too much, like give him a flat top, but not in a good way. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but oh well, it's another point gone. Yeah, alright, well, it's a little bit more tricky, this one. Intranzia Fraye, that was a nice looking vehicle. This one, a little bit less so. There's lots of detail here, but there's also lots of things to have to concentrate on, and those mold lines are a little bit thicker than we've seen so far in this set of videos. So we'll have to see how long it takes to build. I hope it's not too long. every so often you're building a model and you don't really appreciate how big it's actually going to end up being, but this thing is absolutely enormous. It is so big. Here is Yarrick for context. Blimey. Okay. Alright. Well, Wazdakka Gutsmek is in the bag. So we're going to pop him to one side. And it's now time to engage in a little more vehicling. So we have, of course, the all-new Commissar Graves as well. Here she is on her big old custom Taurox. There it is. So we have an optional extra here in the form of the version on foot as well. But I don't think there's anything else in here that's going to be kind of optional per se. So we'll have to see what the vibe is in here. So let's get this one open and have a little look, shall we? Alright, sliding out the tray. There we go. Alright, so instruction manual and 1 and 2 of the finest sprues, and there should be, yes, a little 32mm base in there, as well as, is this an all new transfer sheet? No, 2022. So, yes, there we go. Alright, so let's pop the tray to one side. And here is the instruction manual. Now, it doesn't feel that weighty, to be honest, which is exciting for me. So here we go. Let's have a little look inside the content, shall we? So we're not going to count the components here because there's going to be a lot more of those, I suspect, than we would normally see. So here we go. So we've got well, we've got 1 and 2 pages, 3 pages, and 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages to build the truck itself. Then comes on to Commissar Graves. Commissar Graves on the tank and right-hand man and a couple of the other additional parts of the command squad. And then finally Commissar Graves on foot as well. It's a pretty simple little build, this one, by the looks of things. So B25, B26, B63, B64, yeah, those are 2 separate models. So we will have to get them built. There doesn't seem to be any options, any alternative things, other than, okay, over here we do have an optional head for the right-hand man, or the right hand, is just what it's called. But that looks to be the sum total of it. Does recommend to paint them separately. I think that is probably something we're going to do by just leaving them off and gluing them to some spare bases for now. So there we go. Commissar Graves looks to be a pretty simple build. So really the thing we're going to look for when we're looking at the sprue now is we're going to look at, well, we're going to try and find the crew themselves, because they're the only things that are going to be kind of any sort of challenge in terms of like the build and the cleanup here, because we are in full vehicle mode, particularly on a sprue like this. And one thing I think that's a quite nice touch actually is that the tires of the truck, they don't have these grooves going all the way through the tire. That's a good thing, because it means that if there is a mold line on it, which there doesn't seem to actually really be, but if there is a mold line on it when it has the kind of ridges on the tires and it goes all the way through, it means cleaning them up is really difficult, because you're going sort of like that all the way around the tire, which is really, quite frankly, annoying. But these seem to be in really good nick. The example that we just talked about in terms of the tires, if we look at the track here, that's the kind of thing you would normally see on a tire. So we're not just going to exclusively talk about tires, but yeah, I mean, generally looks to be a pretty simple sprue, and the mold lines are very small, very small indeed. So the cleanup is going to be minimal here, which is which is a big plus on this thing. It doesn't look as big as I initially thought it did, but then I didn't think Gutsmek looked as big as he does, and he really does look enormous now that we've got him built and in hand. So there we go. That is the first of the sprues. And like I said, there's nothing really here to point out other than there's a lot of components here, but this seems to be the vast majority of the truck itself is on here. Now the other sprue is also a double sprue, so let's pull that one out. Here it is. So this is where we get the sort of firing deck and things like that as well over here. We also get the plow at the front here. So again, kind of mostly this half over here, that is for the building of the vehicle, and it's very vehicle shaped. So again, it's just, you want to sort of, in this orientation, as we've talked about a couple of times in this video already, you want to be cleaning up your parts in this orientation, because you're not going to find sort of weird sprue gates in anywhere that they're not meant to be, because we are all on that sort of flat 2D plane. The only thing to ever watch out for is if you have something that really kind of crosses the plane, like for example the firing deck here, where there might potentially be a mold line sort of somewhere like halfway along this kind of flat part, although in this case there actually isn't, but occasionally it can happen that you have like a mold line going across there, because that's just the way it is. The only part to really focus on, I guess, is going to be the crew over here, for example. And well, the first few things I'm seeing is that they've escaped the dreaded fate of connection point on the cutting edge of a blade here. Same over here as well. Same over here, although that is a sheathed sword. This sheath also escapes it. It's on the flat part of the back of the blade. We've got some heads in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should be 5, and there should be 6. And there should be 7. Should be another commissar's hat somewhere. I'm not seeing it, but all of the ones that we've got there that we've just pointed out, they are all connected on the underside of the neck. So great, not on the top of a smooth helmet or in someone's hair or something like that, which is fantastic. The banner over here, we're connected just once, twice, 3 times on the flag itself. Once down here on the sort of counterweight of the flag, so not on the banner pole as well, which is really, really good and awesome. Generally, it just looks like a really, really, really good set of components across this tank. Yeah, I'm really impressed. I like this a lot, so I'm just gonna jump in and start building this. Like I said, I think we're probably gonna have the crew separate, because we're gonna want to do the crew and Graves in Contrast Plus, but this is a black tank, so it's probably be a better idea to just prime it black than muck about with all that Black Legion. So yeah, I guess we'll have to get building, and we'll see how long it takes to build Commissar Graves. There we have it, Commissar Graves all built, both iterations, tank and non-tank. So like I said, we've put these on some spare bases that I have knocking about, glued with a little bit of super glue, so they should just snap off a little bit later, so makes it a little bit easier to paint these guys. So I'm going to pop these off to one side, because we do in fact have one last thing to look at, and it's the big box of tanks. So over here you go. There we go. So here it is, the Armageddon box, the Astra Militarum Battalion box, and inside we have the Centaur RSV, and I forgot the name of the other one, but we also have a Rogel Dawn and 10 guys. So here is the name, the Hippogriff AFV. So there's the Centaur RSV, and there's the Hippogriff AFV. So these are the only 2 kits we're going to be looking at. These 2, because we've actually done the Rogel Dawn and we've done the Astra Militarum as well, the Cadian Shock Troops. So let's get this one open. Let's have a look. Okay, interesting. So we actually just get one large instruction manual here. It's not a series of them. There's obviously our bases as well, which is not relevant for us. Now this, I think, looks like a Centaur, and that's a Rogel Dawn. This looks like Centaur, and that's a Rogel Dawn. Rogel Dawn. Hippogriff, I think. And then we have in here as well a vehicle transfer sheet and a Cadian transfer sheet as well for our infantry. Okay, so we're going to pop the rest of this to one side just for the moment. So yeah, here we go. So what we've got is two identical sprues because we've got two identical tanks. What's interesting is that that tank fits on just these two sprues. This is the little Hippogriff, which is awesome. I like it. Hopefully it doesn't take as long as Graves takes to build. And then here is the other one, Centaur, on two sprues as well. So, inside the instruction manual, what do we start with? For some reason, we start with the Cadian shock troops. Okay, skip that. There we go. Centaur RSV. That's what we wanted to look at. So, shouldn't be too much going on here. Now, I think, despite what I've heard, I think it is, in fact, there is not a cover. You can't put there's not like a roof for this thing. Now, I have had this idea that I worked on with Joe very briefly to use the old Creeping Vines kit to cover it if you didn't want to put the crew in. But otherwise, I think you probably do want to put the crew in because it looks really cool with the crew. So there's 4 crew members that go in there as options. And then we have obviously closed turret or open turret with the gunner peeking out the top as well as an option. And there we go, just a single gun option. Got a couple of little bits and bobs here that we can attach. A little upgrade sprue, kind of to put stuff like, you know, cans and things and spare las guns on. And then we are done over on this side as well. So pretty simple build, no gun options here. The Hippogriff AFV, you build this twice. There's no difference between the two, other than the optional extras that we have available to us to add to our thingamabob, our tank. That's the thing I was looking for, the word I was looking for. So, what do we have? Well, we have the big long gun, we have the slightly smaller gun, we have the Gatling, and we have the sort of melter cannon as well. I like the big long gun, so that's probably what I'm going to put on it, because it just looks cool. You know, we're all about the rule of cool around here. So, oh, and that's it. It looks like a really simple build. And obviously there is a tank commander in there as well to have someone peeking out the top hatch should you so desire. Alrighty. It's a pretty simple build actually, just looking at it. Like that's 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5 pages, and then it's Rogel Dawn time after that. Alright. Well, let's just look at both those tanks, shall we? Because as we've mentioned, these are tank sprues, so they shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. So we'll look at one of these guys first, because duplicate sprue and all. And we will just build these one after the other, and we'll also time how long it takes to build them one after the other. So here we go. Here is our Hippogriff. That's what it's called. Now, the thing that we talked about with Graves' tank and the tyres seems to hold true here. We don't have the kind of splits in the tyres or the tread of the tyres going all the way through the tyres, which is really good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. We do have a slightly little bit more of a mold line thing going on here on this one than we did, but not too much more, so the cleanup looks pretty good. And as ever with tank sprues, 2D plane. That's where we want to look. Now, there shouldn't be too much in the way of, like, the counter to Graves, for example, where we had, like, the crew and the people. That's the word I was looking for. To kind of account for in terms of, you know, that sort of the details of a sort of typical build of a human or various other things like that. But we do have, for example, connection points on the underside of the neck for both versions of the tank commander poking out the top hatch, which is really cool. It's really good. The body looks pretty decent, and the arm actually looks pretty good, with just a connection point on the shoulder and on... Oh no, actually that's a connection point on the hand Oh, boo. This one looks alright though, so connection point on the cuff, and this one on the shoulder as well. Otherwise, I mean, look at it, it's a tank, everything's flat, everything's on the 2D plane. It should look reasonably easy. There's nothing kind of weirdly laid out, and nothing kind of crossing the plane too much. The always, as ever, the thing to watch out for is whether or not we have like a weird mold line just sort of like halfway through the panel, but it doesn't seem like we do have that to contend with. So realistically, this one's just going to be sort of a matter of time, and there are 2 in the box, so the shorter this takes, the better when you get them in units of 2. So let's pop this one to one side. For the other one, our Centaur, we do actually have these 2 sprues. So, well, let's just look at that one first because it's smaller. So there we go, and well, this is where we have our crewmen. Well, the passengers really is what they are. Now, this vehicle is very reminiscent to me of the old Land Speeder Storm, where you had the scouts all packed in, hanging off the sides. It's a really lovely model. I loved it. It was so very cinematic. And this one kind of feels very, very similar, to have all of these guys sort of just that you can just plop into the open troop compartment. Now, if we're going to put them on, then we are also going to put them on some spare bases in order to make it a little bit easier to paint them. It just makes sense, right? But generally, again, another vehicle sprue. This is what we said a lot during this video. But we have some of the helmets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 down there. 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 heads in here. Wow. Okay. So there's 10 heads in here, and one of them has a connection point on the top of the helmet. So we know which one we're not going to use, because the others will be much easier to deal with because they don't have a connection point on the top of the helmet. So nice and rounded, and it will stay rounded because you won't have to kind of clean up any of that excess sprue left behind when you clip it off the sprue. So there we go. Otherwise, again, the sort of vehicle parts, the components that are here on this sprue, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and well, there's more than whatever I'm able to count here, but all flat, all on the 2D plane. So again, just going to be moving our pieces in this orientation just to check for those bits of sprue that have been left behind. So there we go, looking pretty good over here, fairly simple. Here is the main event for the vehicle itself, and this is actually pretty familiar already, having built Graves. We've seen these pieces on the on Graves's vehicle, so there, if you've got both, then this will feel pretty familiar already at this point, which makes sense, which is pretty cool. Actually, it does feel like this is a less congested sprue than some of the others that we've looked at so far, so maybe there is a reduction in components here. Again, this one's going to be all about speed of build. It doesn't feel too big, which is good, because I think some of the pictures make it look really big, but doesn't feel overly large. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. They both look pretty simple to do, so we'll have to wait and see. We've got 3 tanks to build now, and, well, we're just going to have to see how long it takes to do them. We'll do them one by one, and then we'll come back for the roundup. So I mentioned at the top of the video that it has been slow this week. I haven't actually done a huge amount as of yet. We do have all of it to go though, and we are going to be doing all of it, so don't worry if you're hoping for a Gutsmek tutorial, for example. It's on its way. But here is what I did do. So naturally I had to get Commissar Yarrick done for today because I was so excited for this miniature, and it does not disappoint. I'm really pleased with the paint job that we've managed to get on him, and I think he looks absolutely fantastic. It is a beautiful do-over for Yarrick. Then we did the tanks. So we did both the Hippogriffs, one Centaur, and we did the Rogaldorn as well, and we did it in this kind of slightly cool sort of green and Xandri dust camo scheme, which you'll get to see a video on very soon. We did a lot of tanks, and there's still one tank left to go, of course, and many other miniatures. It's all on the way. We're going to get started on all of that pretty much after I've done editing this video. I mean, I've already started Inquisitor Kroyle, so, you know, we're going to get on with him very shortly. So overall, sprue-wise, what are we thinking? Well, it is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of building and all that good stuff with these sprues. Some are great, some aren't so good, some are perfectly fine. I feel like that's kind of just sort of the sort of default position these days for these sort of quite large releases of things. And when it's this kind of, not scattergun, but when there's so much variation here on display, it's hard to keep it all straight in your head as to whether or not it's good versus bad. There's a couple of things, obviously, that do stand out, you know, connection points in weird places. Some of the mold lines a little bit too strong, for example, on Gutsmek, and, you know, there's a little bit of confusion in terms of kind of how some of these components do sort of go together, and there's, for example, on the Centaur, the kind of underside of the wheels, and in fact even on the Hippogriffs as well, there's a lot of work that goes into the underside of the vehicle where you're not really going to see a huge amount of detail, and it does make the building experience feel a little bit overly long, I would say. There's just kind of elements of it that are a little bit just kind of over-engineered, I think is probably the best way to describe that. But ultimately, I think there's some really interesting things going on here. So, for example, there's a lot of, and I was very confused by it at first, but with Inquisitor Graves, there's a lot of leftover components. And it's because, and I said in the video that it's a modified Taurox. It's not. It's a modified one of these. It's a modified Centaur. So you get the Centaur sprue. So effectively, what Commissar Graves is an upgrade sprue for this, which is actually quite neat. It's a really interesting sort of thing, and I only realised it afterwards, after I was painting. So once, you know, posted all the primer and that kind of stuff, and once we'd done with the sprue review, it was only then that I kind of actually figured out what what the vibe was going on there. But this is, I think, it's a really interesting thing, and it's very clever, and it's, well, it looks fantastic in the end. I really enjoyed painting these. You were going to get to see them, but yeah, so there's just elements of it that are a bit sort of wacky in some places, and it does unfortunately bring some marks down. Ultimately, I didn't have a horrible build experience overall, having done all of it, but, you know, there are sort of certain things. Obviously, if you go back in the video, you'll see those specific problems here and there. Ultimately, though, it's a really strong release for Warhammer 40,000, and it's kind of like it kind of has been ever since we sort of started returning to these types of kits, especially over the last couple of months with the new supplements for such things. It is a mixed bag, and I think that's always going to be that way when you kind of have the different context for some things that are really good versus some things that are slightly more challenging at the same time. So it does make the sort of overall rating of everything that we've got going on here just a little bit less. Some of the challenges that do exist within the boxes, for example, is that with Inquisitor Kroyle, some of those legs don't fully match up properly. There is a sort of little bit of sort of gappage going on, especially in the way that it's kind of like two halves of the body. There is a very clear sort of line halfway down the tail if you don't fully catch it. As an example, actually putting him on to the mount, it's a slightly weird angle of the dangle that it's got to go in, and at first I thought I'd got it, but then I really gave it a push and it clicked in. So that's one thing obviously to bear in mind. When it comes to Yarrick, his like piece that goes on the back that connects his side of his head to his power coil, so it's sort of weird sort of like sort of two-ended cable thing. Again, it doesn't quite line up with pieces, and you do it quite late in the kit anyway. It's not like a first thing and then the head attaches in. It's one of those things of like, you have to really be sure that the head has gone in properly to make sure that that thing is meeting just there at the side of his bionic eye, as but an example. When it comes to Gutsmek, there is just a lot of mold lines going on, which we've already mentioned, but it then kind of becomes a slightly mind-bending build, especially when you're sort of building the smoke stuff coming out of the back. It's a little challenging because the contact points between the pieces aren't great. They're there and they slot together perfectly fine, but it takes just a little bit of sort of very like a gentle touch to make sure that it all works together. And when you start sort of adding up these little aspects of things, it does start to become slightly more difficult to do. The thing that I find interesting actually when it comes to like the sort of floating crew options, which we've built all separately, we've mounted them on different bases in order to just add them in later so we can get the priming done properly. When it comes to like Graves's crew and things, there are things like where they're holding on to the side, which means even if you intend to sub-assemble them, you have to make sure you get that right, because you don't want further down the line they're just not going to sit right in the vehicle. And that's kind of happens when you have pieces that interact so much with a vehicle like this. The Centaur is a great example. There's one of a Acadian sort of holding on to the top to the top of the truck, and firstly, I mean, they're all in one single piece. So actually, the sort of crew passengers for the Centaur are better than Graves's crew because they are really directly designed to be part of the Centaur. And it's strange because the Graves individuals, they're not part of the tank. They are part of the tank, but they feel a little bit more, I guess, floaty in some regards because there's more components to them. For example, like the stubber shooters, they do have the two floating arms onto the body, and again, if you don't get that angle right, their feet won't sit flat on the deck inside, which then gives it a slightly weird jaunty angle, which you're not necessarily ever going to really see, but it then does mean that the final assembly becomes a little bit difficult. So there's aspects of it like that where I think maybe rather than kind of like the flat the flat torsos, there could have been guide pegs for it to just make sure it's absolutely locked, because there is no variation in that regard. So there's just things missing from certain kits, and there's just little challenges along the way throughout all of them. Intranzia Fraye, funnily enough, is probably one of the easier of all of the models to build, despite how insane the model looks. The only thing, again, I would say is that the cherub over the top just sticks on, and when you do it, you'll understand what I mean by that, but it just goes on, and there's no guide as to where it goes other than just eyeballing it. So there's no like peg or anything like that. There's no missing section where the parchment fits into the strut that it's attached to. It just sticks on in the same way when you buy a Space Marine kit, for example, and you have all the optional purity seals. The entire cherub is like that, which is challenging because it's not necessarily a focal point, but it is a big detail. But if you don't want to put it on, it does mean that if you don't put it on, you're not missing a whole section of a piece. So in that regard, it's a plus. So there you go. It's a mixed bag. There's lots of really cool stuff going on here, and there's some challenges, as there always is when it comes to building miniatures. How do we ultimately feel, though, on the Land Raider scale, or maybe the Rogel Dawn scale? Nope, stick with the Land Raider scale at the moment. On the Land Raider scale, we're going to give this week's releases a 7 out of 10, which feels like the most common rating that we give, because generally I think like 40k has been in a really good place when it comes to its miniature releases the last couple of months, and in terms of like the kits that have come out, it's been a fairly mixed bag. If we look back over 10th edition, it's been a very mixed bag, but this final part has been quite exciting, and there's been lots of really cool stuff, but there have also been some difficulty with some of these kits along the way. But 7 out of 10 feels good, and well, I guess now we just have to wait until Armageddon itself returns to us for, well, I guess, what, 5th or 6th time? We'll have to see. But yeah, Let me know in the comments what you think. Did you enjoy this video? Do you think that my rating is fair? Are you excited to return to Armageddon for the 7th or 8th time? Maybe even the 10th, 11th or 12th time? Depends on how many times you've been to Armageddon. I hear it's lovely this time of year. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel and you'd like to support me further, you absolutely can do so by heading to patreon.com/Warhipster, just like all of these wonderful, amazing people have done. And alternatively, you could become a YouTube channel member by clicking on the join button below, exactly like these fabulous folks have done, scrolling up on the screen before you. There are so many of you out there that it really takes my breath away, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you do, as without you, I wouldn't be able to keep making these Contrast Plus videos. And if you really like this video and you want to send me a little thanks, just click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.